Welcome to A Better HR Business, the podcast that looks at how HR consultants and HR tech firms grow their businesses and how they help their employers to get the best out of their people. Remember, for show notes and downloads, go to www.getmorehrclients.com/podcast. That's getmorehrclients.com/podcast. Okay, let's get started.
Hello, welcome back to the show. Great to have you along. And I'm really looking forward to today's conversation with Stephane Rivard. Stephane is the Montreal-based CEO and co-founder of a very cool company called HiringBranch, which is an AI-powered platform revolutionizing recruitment through realistic job simulation assessments. And he and the team are on a mission to eliminate bias and replace traditional interviews with data-driven, simulated, skill-based hiring, particularly for high-volume roles. Before we get into that, Stephane, thanks very much for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I gave a snapshot, but do you want to just give us an overview of two things? One is what HiringBranch is and does, but also, I guess, the evolution, because I know it's evolved over time and into very cool ways.
Yeah, happy to do that. We started the journey about over 20 years ago in working with, high volume hires call centers. And we were doing at that time mostly, customer service training and soft skills training, language training. And eventually we realized that most high volume hiring, especially outside of North America, were using language assessments, which are very good evaluating your level of language. But this is really only a micro skill. And more importantly, what we discovered is your relational skills or people skills or soft skills that really are much more important are really the macro skill. We developed our own small language model, our native AI, and it really focuses on evaluating people in a role. So we put them in the role. They talk to customers that are very closely aligned to the role that they're applying for. So this could be in a contact center, it could be sales organization, could be retail, in-person retail. And they would have to respond to questions, interact with a customer that is as close as possible to the reality. And within this framework, we evaluate their language skills, their soft skills, their critical thinking skills. This is all done instantaneously and in conjunction of all these skills. You just do your best and demonstrate your skills you have, regardless of your background.
I love it. So what do companies, employers, hiring teams get wrong when it comes to skills-based hiring?
We worked with a customer, they work with charitable organizations, and they wanted to hire empathetic people, and they raised funds for them. And after we ran them through our platform, we realized that empathy is a nice to have skill, but this was not the skill that was able to raise money. There were other ones. And there's a combination of fluency, building rapport, handling objections, that if you could find candidates consistently with those skills, then you could really outperform in those campaigns. And we see this over and over and over again. You need a modern architecture with a skills-based model that evaluates hundreds and hundreds of skills, including acoustic features. You get great candidates.
I'm thinking something like tenacity or something like that would come out as some sort of function in those sort of roles.
Yeah, exactly. I agree. And perseverance, grit,
Sure.
critical thinking. So all these little skills that, it's difficult to measure when you're doing multiple choice questions really come out when you're doing our type of assessment, which is completely speaking open-ended.
I guess that gets you past the halo effect, or whoever's the most highly paid, that's the opinion that wins in a discussion. So if that person is empathetic, then they're going to say, look, we need to be hiring people that are empathetic. Whereas you're talking about data, your actual, results. I really like that approach.
That's exactly it, and it's not static. As the world changes, so does your business problem, the products that you're offering, and you need to evolve. So with this, it's completely blind. Like the technology is completely blind point of view of the background and also HR. You get this great, profile of that candidate, which is completely unbiased. It gives a candidate a fair opportunity to get the job because really they feel confidence in the process. And more importantly, once you have this report about the candidate, it gives you an opportunity to do a better interview because you're already informed about the skills they have and the skills they may not have. So skill gaps analysis, this happens on the fly. So yeah, they're always surprised of who they get to hire and the outcomes they get with those people they're hiring.
So why do you think job simulations haven't become standard, even though they're clearly more predictive or better than CVs?
Well, we're in a very traditional business. People really believe in their skills, the interviewers. Many of our customers are very skeptic at the beginning that this standardized way to evaluate people does better. So, we say you don't need better interview or interview skills. You're not hiring a CEO using an AI robot. You're hiring someone out of university, a fresher out of university. You don't need better interviews. You need better evidence. You need data that supports your decisions. So I think once you do the pilot and you get beyond that, it becomes quite obvious that this is a great way, especially at the top of the funnel, to filter candidates for the skills you need.
For someone listening to this who might want to use it for their workforce, or maybe a consultant who might refer it on to a client, how does it actually work? Is it you would choose packages off the shelf? Are you taking position description and stuff and turning it into learning and then assessing from there? How do you do it?
We would take a job description and build an algorithm for that. We've been at it for a while now, and we have algorithms and profiles and benchmarks around the world for a variety of different roles, including in banking, finance, retail, financial ops, risk management. So now when you start with a new client and we have an idea of the profile, we can go from those right out of the box, and we just tailor as time goes on. The AI is fully adjustable according to your requirements and the outcomes you get. AI, just like humans, is not perfect, but we're more reliable for these jobs than a human interview who's maybe having a bad day.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, I think that's quite a good moat almost, because as you say, you've been in business for 20 years or something, and you have a lot of data, whereas a new company coming along, they're going to rely on what's out there, just public data and stuff, whereas you've accumulated that, which then can feed your system, and you can also track that back to who's a good hire versus a bad hire, as opposed to just data on top of the funnel stuff. Am I right in thinking that?
You're absolutely right. And we're seeing a lot of companies emerging, and they're using LLMs. So, large language models from the major providers. And we've done analysis, and the data out there for LLMs are only text-based. They don't evaluate, how you speak, the acoustic features. They're really great at understanding. Even if you complete half a question, they figure things out. So,
They fill in the blanks. Yeah.
You're using a small language focused on the skills, and we have millions and millions of pieces of data. You get much, much better. And they've been proven to correlate to performance or outcomes.
Nice. I noted that it was a while back you got funding from the federal government to develop, commercialize an AI soft skill evaluation tool, which is huge, because a few years back, I used to joke that you could be a cafe and call yourself a blockchain cafe and you double your sales because everyone thinks, wow, isn't that cool? And now everything's AI, even though it's probably not. Whereas you've actually been trusted by the government to do it properly. So how did that work, and how do you see your product developing as time goes by?
We're thankful, we're based in Canada. The Canadian government has a thorough vetting process, and they have something called the National Research Council of Canada, and they will fund projects of deep science. When we start off, this is, how we got off the ground. We were only a few people with an idea. The small language model didn't exist, but we went out and built it. And, we've grown to over 30 people now with this backing. And now we are doing another project that we're just recently launched with the Canadian government, again, through an NRC, for the next generation of assessment. It's not easy building something from scratch. You need that deep science, the linguistics. We have linguistic PhDs, psychometricians on our team dedicated to this. So it's exciting, and it's good to be backed by third parties.
Yeah, absolutely. To clarify for people listening, as I said, may either have a company that would potentially be using HiringBranch, or they have clients and they could refer it on. Who are the ideal types of customers or clients or companies that would use HiringBranch?
We like to work with companies that hire in high volume. They can be in any kind of vertical, but the most important one is that they want to have a data-driven approach to hiring. They need better evidence, and they want to standardize this through the organization. We work with all kinds of organizations. We work with some who are, BPO consultants. So we work with ATS vendors. We work with video interview tools that we can help the consultant or service provider with their customers make better informed decisions to reach outcomes. We're the perfect partners for you.
That's good. And for others listening to this, I think that's an excellent tip there, is that partnership, that complementary, not competing company approach can work wonders in the HR tech space. Over the many years you've been in business, you've acquired customers not only locally, but internationally. I'm very curious, how did you get your first customers, and then how has that evolved over time to where you guys are now?
Yeah, we're seeing it's a different market. There's a lot of noise, there's a lot. But we start off really by attending conferences, making sure that every customer we have is a success. We put all our efforts into making sure that we align with their outcomes, make sure that they're satisfied. So word of mouth has really grown. We work with Fortune 100 companies that we've grown organically within these organizations. So being dedicated to the art of what you're doing is really important. And then, of course, we use SEO, which is becoming very useful, especially now because a lot of people are looking through LLMs like ChatGPT, OpenAI, Gemini. But, it's being focused, making sure you know what your vertical is, which is always difficult at the early stage because you try to pivot too much, but try to focus. You need to go talk to people. You need to talk to customers or potential customers and find out what their problems are and see if you can solve them.
I'm always curious hearing from founders, any marketing mistakes, anything that you tried and just that didn't go so well, and any lessons from that?
I have to get my book out. There are so many of them. I think marketing is a bit like the weatherman. You don't always get it right, but you have to experiment. We've been to conferences, which is just not a fit. And the other ones we go to turns out to be incredibly successful. We've done some cold outreach. The success rate is very, very low. The advice is that you have to experiment. You have to make sure that you keep it cost effective. So, quickly experiment, measure, see if it works. If it doesn't work, then move on. But I still think for us, the most success is back to get out there and talk to people, whatever it may be, a networking event. I belong to a founders club. I go talk to young founders. Talking to people is always incredibly useful. The person you're going to meet will come out with some new knowledge, and so will you. And this will help you grow your business.
And it's not just getting new ideas, particularly if you're speaking to customers or people in your target market. It's also the repetition. So you start to see certain themes arising, certain pain points or success points, whatever. And you realize, everyone's talking about that, or it's more often that they're talking about it. We should play to that or fix that, whatever it may be. But if you're just having 3 or 4 conversations and you hear 3 or 4 different things, and you've got some ideas, but you don't get the signal from all that noise.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you. Many founders fall in love with their idea. Sometimes you may have a great idea that will serve you really well, but you need a market and you need a common problem. And you need to go out there and listen to people. If you look at these companies like Shopify, the problem he had is that he was trying to collect money for his online snowboard shop. Yeah. And Tobias now has, a multi-billion-dollar business because he created an online shopping technology.
Just on the conference thing. So if I went to Google and said, tell me some conferences to attend, I'd get a massive list back. And You've talked about going to so many, and you've gone to some that have been good, some that have been bad, and you never quite know. Is there some guidelines, some rules you try to follow that helps you choose? Because it costs money and it costs time, right?
Yeah. What we do now is that we send someone to go walk the shows prior, and we'll pay a pass and you go talk to people. You get a lot of inside information. Surprisingly enough, if you go to a conference, talk to all your colleagues that attend shows. It's very collaborative. Even though that you're competing against someone, the more people are in a space, the more successful you are. If you see one restaurant in the middle of nowhere, you're not going to go. But if you see 10 restaurants on a strip, you'll pick one of those. So, you're trying to create a community of, like-minded, and this attracts like-minded consumers.
And what kind of questions would you ask, whether it be them or people in that field? When you say you send people ahead to walk the floor and ask questions, what kind of questions would you be asking?
We would try to figure out people that are close to our business. And I would ask them, what shows do you attend? What kind of feedback do you get? What is your most challenging show? Be clever about your questions and you'll find the right answers.
Any final either marketing or business growth advice for other people in the HR tech space?
You need a fair access to opportunity, less reliance on pedigree. Like resumes are not really a good source of truth. Sometimes people are good at sales, but not good at customer service, vice versa. And really HR people need to be moving from an admin function to a strategic function. And you need the tools to do that. Everyone in this space need to think about the companies that win won't hire faster. We've had a big push about, efficiency and screening. Nowadays, they'll hire smarter. They'll hire more consistently, and you need proof. You need the evidence. This is how we are marketing ourselves, and this is how we're positioning our company as a HR leader.
Love it. If people want to learn more about HiringBranch, what should they do next?
Well, they can either reach out to our website, HiringBranch.com, or if they want to talk to me, always happy to talk to anybody. It's Stephane, Stephane, with an E at the end, at HiringBranch.com.
Very good. Well, we'll have the HiringBranch website and details in the show notes. But Stephane, thank you so much for sharing your story and telling us how you built and how you're growing the business. It's certainly an amazing product and helping create new opportunities and helping companies bring in better people and happier, more engaged people. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, Ben, for the opportunity. I appreciate your time.
Thanks for joining us today on A Better HR Business, the podcast that explores the world of HR consulting and HR tech businesses. For show notes and downloads, go to www.getmorehrclients.com/podcast. That's getmorehrclients.com/podcast. Remember to subscribe and share the show with any friends who are busy growing a HR business. Thanks, and see you next time.